This is a practice to strengthen the back, glutes, and your core for a healthy spine. Start in standing pose. We'll start with some warm-ups. Inhale, reach your arms up. Stretch your arms up to the ceiling. You can flip your palms and interlace your fingers. I'm going to start to shift my butt back and my chest forward. And then lift up the heart. And then round your front body and stretch your back. Exhale, fold, Uttanasana. And then stay here for just a moment or two, rocking forward and back on your feet. Feel the balance. Bend your knees as much as you need. We're not going to take a lot of backside stretching postures here, so this is just a little bit of awakening for the back. Lift your left leg, engage your glutes and your back muscles here, fingertips to the floor or blocks, and then lower your left foot down. And we'll do that on the second side. Lift your right leg, use your glutes, your hamstrings, and your back muscles. Lift your head, lift up to your fingertips on the floor or block, and release, exhale. And step back into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And so we're not trying to overstretch the glutes or the hamstrings here, really trying to keep this as a moderate shape, somewhere just a place to catch your breath and rest. Knees to the floor, tabletop pose. Then take your right leg up and back, lift your head. Press through your foot. Use those glutes and lower your knee down. And we'll switch sides. Take your left leg up and back. Use your glutes. Press through your hands. Lift your head, lift your chest. Press your foot back. And then release that down to the floor, tabletop. Downward facing dog. Lift your knees. Press up and back. Exhale. And again, just a nice, moderate, easy dog shape to stretch out. Bend your knees and start to lower your knees back down to the floor and come back up into tabletop pose. Take your right knee on the outside of your left ankle so your legs cross. Take your right elbow to the floor. Fingers point towards the left side of the room. And take your left hand to your hip or wrap your left arm around behind. So your ankle and knees, all of them are in line. You can open your left hand up to the ceiling instead if that feels better, but push down into your right elbow and open your right shoulder. You can look up to your left hand. All right, come back to the floor with your hands and stretch back here. You're going to unwrap your leg and keep your left knee bent. Take your right foot back longer and stretch your arms forward, little deer stretch, sitting back on your left heel. And then swing your right leg up and out in a tabletop position. Left hand's on the floor. Open your right arm up to the ceiling. Push down into your left hand. Push down into your left knee. And press your right foot flat. Right hand down. And then take your right knee back over into tabletop pose. Lift up and back, downward facing dog. Exhale. Again, just a moment here in a nice, easy down dog shape. It's not too challenging, not pushing yourself too far. Focusing on your breath in and out of your nose. Lower your knees down slowly so you can feel your core work on the way. And then take your left leg around to the other side of your right ankle. So your ankle is hooking the outside of your left knee. Left elbow to the floor right under your shoulder. Line those heels up so your feet and your knees all line up. Right hand can stretch up to the ceiling, or you can take your right hand to your hip or wrap it around behind for a bind. But keep pressing down into your right knee and your left elbow, and keep your left shoulder blade from popping off your back, and your left collarbone, keep it from collapsing into your chest. Feel a nice stretch in the outer right hip. Maybe reach your hand up for the last breath or two, and then exhale, release your hand back down. And then again, uncross your legs and slide your left leg back and sit back towards your right heel. You can take your arms forward. You can keep your hands back in a little bit more so you're not so much down on the floor. All right, and then swing that left leg up and out to the side so your left foot is flat on the floor. Right hand is flat on the floor under your shoulder. Reach your left arm up to the ceiling and lean back into your right hand and your right knee and keep the seal on your left foot on the floor. All right, nice big spiral of your heart open, and then exhale, release your left hand down and come back into tabletop pose. If you need a little cat-cow or a little hip waggle side to side, please take your time there. So I'm going to crisscross my forearms, right hand on top of the left. I'm going to turn my fingers away from each other so they're pointing to the opposite ends of the mat, sides of the mat. And then here, just a little cat-cow to feel out and see what's going on. I'm actually going to take this into plank pose. You can stay in tabletop if you want to stay here. Find out where your elbows need to be. If your elbows hyperextend, this is going to be tricky. And then you can start to straighten out your legs, plank pose. Try to take your chest down and open your heart, and then maybe just a moment in down dog to do that. So when I take down dog, I'm looking forward, then come into plank, and now I can feel where my chest should be. It's opening, not rounding. And just a few moments here. You don't have to be here very long, maybe 2 breaths, 3 breaths, possibly 4 or 5. Squeeze your thighs a lot here. Modified version is knees down. All right, and then come back and uncross your arms. Sit back on your heels and just move your arms up to the ceiling. Interlace your fingers, flip your palms up, and again, dip your back and open your chest, and then pull your back, just like we did in that standing pose, or your round. All right, and then come back up to tabletop pose. Crisscross your left arm over your right. Turn the fingers to face out, and then if you can turn your fingers to face forward. It's up to you. So I'm going to turn my fingers to face to the top of the mat. And then again, you got to situate those elbows and get them in the right place. If the fingers pointing out is better, please do that. And then just stay in tabletop as long as you need. When you're ready, you can take it into plank. Again, I'm going to move into this downward facing dog to feel the opening in my chest, so that when I come into plank, I can just recreate that opening in my chest. Thighs are strong, toes are strong. Press into your hands, your shoulders are stretching, and they're working at the same time. So you really have to use your core here. Back muscles are strong, core muscles are strong. Again, that modified version is knees to the floor, so if you need the knees down here, just for a breath, and then you can come out of that. And then again, you're going to sit back and stretch your wrist up to the ceiling. You can interlace your fingers again, flip your palms, let your back extend, and then pull back like a cat stretch, right? All right. Come back out to tabletop pose, and then back up to downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift your right leg as you inhale. Use your glutes to do that. Use your back muscles as well. Now you're going to pull your right knee into your chest and hold here, nose to knee, and then see if you can open your chest just a little bit. So there is a rounding in the spine in this, but try not to collapse your front chest. You want to be able to breathe. Left leg is strong. Squeeze the right heel up, and then press back to 3-leg dog. And then we're going to take this knee to arm. So right knee to right arm, squeeze out around your right arm and open your chest through your shoulder head. Squeeze your right heel to your butt. Left leg very strong. Left glutes very strong. Left hamstring strong. Front of the right hip is squeezing the right knee up. And then come back. 3-leg dog. Inhale one more time. Sweep that leg up and give a little opening to your hip here if it feels good. Step your right foot forward now. We're going to come into Trikonasana triangle pose. So place your right hand on your right shin. Angle your left foot so that it's not pointing straight out to the edge of your mat. And then open your shoulders, open your ribs. Keep your hips squeezing in towards your belly button. Squeeze your right thigh up. And then press your hands away from each other as you open your chest and spiral your spine open towards the ceiling. Even as there's a spiraling in your spine, you're lengthening your spine forward. So really using those back muscles to push your spine taller. Coming into half moon, Ardha Chandrasana, take your right hand forward and out. This one, you're going to lift your left leg up as high as you can get it. So lift your left heel higher than your hip so that you can feel this nice diagonal line between your head and your heel. You feel the stretch in the inner right thigh, and then maybe you can even lift that foot up a little higher. Another big breath here. And then take your left hand down and bend your right knee. Land on your left toes. Take your left heel down and turn your right toes out at an angle. And then take your right hand down your left leg. And then as you lift your left hand up higher, roll to the ball of your left foot. Keep your right toes pointing out. Your right knee is following your right toes. And then you're stretching up and back down towards the left heel with your right hand. Exhale, take your left hand down to the floor, left knee to the floor, turn your right toes out a little bit more. Don't let your right foot roll up off the floor. Your right foot is flat. And then here, stretch open. I'm going to actually take my left toes and lift my left knee and open up here. So leaning back into your left hand might have to come off to the edge of your mat. Spiral your heart open. Push into the sole of your right foot. The right toes are pointing out. All right, then exhale, take your hand down. Slide your right foot back again into this tabletop with left knee bent, right leg out, and then sit back towards your left heel. Let your right toes lift up to the ceiling so you're on the back of your right heel. Forward folding here. And then on your next inhale, come back up into a table position with that right leg out. Lift your right hand again, left hand stays flat. Now lift your left knee off the floor and you're gonna come really high on that right heel or the left heel and then roll out to the outside edge of your left foot. And you're on the back of your right heel still. And then bend the right knee and you can open your chest a little bit more. You can pull your right elbow down towards your hip. You can even take your hand on your right thigh, but bend the right knee. Your right foot is flat on the floor now. The right toe is pointing towards the side of the room. And coming out of that, take your right hand back down and step back into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. I'm going to come into plank pose for chaturanga. You can take child's pose or stay in downward facing dog. Inhale into upward facing dog if you're moving through chaturanga. And exhale, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Catch your breath. Inhale, slow breath from your belly to your back. Soften those joints. And just a moment here in child's pose, sit back hips to heels. If you need to take longer here, please take longer and catch up only when you're ready. And I'm going to come back up to tabletop and lift that right leg now, taking this tiger stretch again just to notice if there's more space. I feel more space in this side. It felt better the second time around. So again, chest lifts, chin lifts, forehead lifts, and then lower your right knee down. And the second side, left leg up, lift that heel. Use your glutes, pull your chest through your shoulders, lift your chin, lift your gaze up to the ceiling. And then you can lower down nice and slow, left knee to the floor. Sit back on your heels. Take your arms up again, interlace your fingers, flip your palms, press your chest up, little hollow body here. You can take your hands behind your head. Anything goes, just a little stretch. Release your wrist for a moment, and then we'll come back into tabletop pose and press up and back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lift that left leg, inhale. And then again, knee to nose. So you're gonna squeeze your left knee in towards your chest, and then nose towards knee. There's gonna be a rounding in the back, but try not to round too much. Yeah, fix it. Keep squeezing from the hip and pulling from the back. Okay, and then push back up, three-leg dog. And then again, we're going to take this knee to the outer left arm. So left knee, left arm. You're going to take the knee out and around, push with your right leg. Open your chest here so you're not rounding up too much. There's not too much of a dome in your upper back. Really squeeze from the front right hip. Squeeze that left glute area. Left leg is strong, especially the back side. And then up and back, three-leg dog. And then we'll step through here, left foot up, right heel down at an angle. Trikonasana, slide your left hand up your left shin, right hand up to the ceiling. Push equally into both feet and squeeze your hips. Use your glutes here. And then your back muscles are strong because they're trying to lengthen your spine. There are a bunch of deep back muscles also that are rotating your spine. So use those back spinal muscles to rotate your spine. At the same time, you're lengthening the spine with those same muscles, with longer muscles. Come forward into half moon, Ardha Chandrasana. Slide your left hand forward to a block or the floor. And then again, you're going to lift that right heel up, right hand up. There's a nice diagonal line from heel to head. Pressing back with your right foot. Press down with your left foot. So really use those glutes and the outer right hip as well. Again, the back muscles are lengthening your spine. See if you can lift that right foot up just a little bit higher for the last breath or two here. And then release your right hand down and step back deep onto your right foot. So again, turn your left toes out at an angle. And then you're going to take your left hand to the back of your right leg, and as you do that, roll up off of your right heel and onto the right toes, and really bend that left knee out in the direction of your left toes. So you're really using your glutes here and the outer adductors, or abductors, the outer thigh muscles of the left leg. All right, and then take your right hand down to the floor, and you can take your right knee down at first, left hand to thigh, open your chest, spiral open. Keep the left toes pointing out at an angle, but the foot is not rolling off the floor. And then I'm going to add on here and lift the right knee up. And really open up here. And you can spiral open with your left hand if you want. You can keep your hand on your hip. All right, and then take your hands back down. And then start to take the left leg out to the side in that tabletop pose again. Sit back towards your right heel. Let your left toes roll up so you're in a nice little forward fold, just giving yourself a break, giving your wrists a break. In fact, stretch them out a little if they need. All right, and then come back up into your tabletop position. Okay, so again, your right hand's going to be on the floor under your shoulder, left arm up to the ceiling, and then I'm going to tuck my toes under, left toes on, right toes under, and lift the right knee, and then here's I'm going to roll to the outside of my right foot, and then lift my left toes up, and then I'm going to bend that left knee and put that left foot flat on the floor. So I'm pulling away from the back end of my mat, from the side of my mat. I'm pushing away, pushing into that left knee bend. It's a little back bend. Strong back muscles, strong glutes. You're going to get a nice stretch in the outer right hip here. Use your left hand on the left thigh if that helps. Lift your chest up. Keep the right shoulder strong so it's not collapsing. And then come out of that, stepping right back, downward facing dog. And stay in downward facing dog, or you can move forward again into plank for chaturanga. Exhale, maybe even child's pose if that feels better for your nervous system and for your wrists to rest. Downward facing dog, exhale. And take just a few moments here. All right, and then we're going to come to knees and sit back on your heels and just sit here for a moment, Vajrasana. Again, take your hands up. I like to do these wrist circles with fists, and then anything that can stretch out your arms and your shoulders and your wrists. If you want to flip your palms again, stretch them up. Yoga Mudra, you could take the interlacing behind your back instead. Cat cow if it feels good here. Hug. I'm going to hug around to opposite shoulders, and then inhale, open. And then I'm going to switch the other arm on top and hug around to opposite shoulders and really round back into my heels, round back into my sit bones. All right, and take your time here. If you need more time, please pause and catch up later. All right, and then I'm coming back into hands and knees. I'm going to move this into a modified side plank. So situate your right knee on the floor underneath your hip. Turn your right toes behind. Left foot is flat on the floor. Press up with your left hand. Push down into your right hand. And lengthen across the shoulder blades from front, or from inside to outside, and then from the front of your chest, from inside to outside, lengthen. Stretch the arm overhead, and then come back down to the floor. And then inhale, open again to the other side. So left knee is on the floor, turn your left toes back, right foot flat on the floor, lift your right arm up, press your hips through, and again, lengthen your shoulder blades on your back, smooth them out, lengthen your collarbones on the front of your chest. And you're going to stretch your right arm overhead, and this kind of just melts down into the floor. So it's like a little cat stretch down into table, and then inhale, cow stretch. All right, now I'm going to tuck toe. I'm actually not tucking toes. I'm just going to lift to the tops of my feet and then tuck toes and roll over. So if that went too fast for you, what I did was a toe, top, plank into side plank. So now I'm on the outside edge of my right foot. Squeeze the legs together. Just a couple breaths here. Vasishthasana. And then exhale over into plank. And then again, I'm going to flip to the tops of my feet. So it's a toe tap, up dog, plank, and then plank on the toes, the bottom of the toes. Roll over to side plank. Left side this time, left hand, left foot. Reach your right arm up, squeeze your hips together. And then use your back muscles to lengthen your spine. Squeeze your glutes, squeeze your hamstrings. Exhale over to plank, and then again toe tap to up dog. And then lift back up, plank pose. Take right knee to chest, and then turn your left heel down to the floor so your right hand is on the floor and your left foot in side plank, awkward side plank. A couple things you can do here. You can grab that bottom leg and stretch it out. If you're not quite focused here, you're going to fall like I just did. And then so you have to lean back with your left shoulder to pull your right foot up. If that's too intense, bend your knee and catch your knee. All right, come back out of that and flip over into wild thing. So the right leg just came under and around behind to the floor, and now your left hand, left foot are on the floor. And then exhale back over to plank pose. Again, toe top plank, roll down, inhale, open your chest, up dog, roll back up, plank to awkward side plank. So left knee into your chest, right foot flat on the floor. Left hand on the floor. And again, you can straighten out your left leg and take your right hand to your left foot, but pull your right shoulder back and pull the left foot up to the ceiling. Again, if that's too intense, hand to knee, or just let the left leg float, knee bent. You can also let the left leg float, leg straight. And then roll back over to plank, flip all the way around into wild thing. So you've switched hands, and now you're on the outside edge of your right foot. Left toes are behind you. Press your hips up to the ceiling, opening this into a back bend. Use those back muscles, use those glutes, use those hamstrings. Back into plank pose, toe top plank, roll down, inhale, upward facing dog. And then come back over to hands and knees, child's pose for a moment if you need a break. Rest your wrists. And catch your breath here. And if there's something that you need to go back and redo, this is a good time to pause the video. This is a faster flow. So if you were lost, this is a good place to pause and go back and check some things out and maybe try them again. All right, coming up into a kneeling position. Like how we're going to take camel. I'm just going to do those same wrist circles and reach my arms up. Interlace my fingers. I'm going to flip my palms up to the ceiling here in just a moment. I like to take the knuckles behind though, and then hands up, just to test out my back, and then flip my palms forward and up. And then again, there's a butt popping out here feeling, so you're pushing your butt behind you and your chest forward and open up, right? So your chest up. You can tuck your toes here if that's easier. Good, and then round out. Okay, release your arms down. In tabletop pose, I'm going to take my left knee again to the outside of my right ankle. But this time I'm actually going to slide my right knee over to the right. I'm going to get a block here. So my right knee pulls over so that it's directly lined up with my right hip and my hips can face forward. Almost like that number 4 shape that we take standing. I've got my block in my left hand, and then I'm going to lean back on my left hand. My fingers are not hooking back or forward. They're on the side of the block so that I can keep that chest open and even bend the elbow softly here. Reach your right hand up and back and keep pressing your hips forward and up. All right, and then pull back up and then take it over to your right hand. Same thing, second side. Soft bend in your right elbow, lift your chest. And again, your fingers point out to the side, kind of like they did in that first crisscross arm position in plank pose that we took. All right, and then lift back up. And then take your hands to the floor. Tuck your left toes here and press up and back into a number 4 shape in downward facing dog. And then you're going to bend your left knee without rounding your back. So keep pressing your chest towards your shin and keep pressing your shin towards your chest with your left knee. You can lift your left heel. You can get as low as you'd like here, but not if your tailbone drops under and not if your back rounds. So lift your butt and open your chest. Nope. Yes. All right, and then you can release your right foot down. Downward facing dog, take as long as you need before the second side. And come back down to the knees. Little cat-cow if it feels good. And then I'm going to take my right knee over and around the outside of my left ankle. Again, I'm going to move my left knee over towards the edge of the mat so that my hip and left knee line up. Right toes are pointing straight back. And then I'm taking the block to the left side. Right side first. I don't know. turn the fingers out, yeah, and then the left arm up and behind. And avoid trying to push down too aggressively into your left knee. Just let this be an opening in your left hip instead of a lot of work. Use your right glutes, use your right hamstrings here. Right, and then inhale, come up, and then we'll switch sides with the block. So left hand to the block. And then again, try to resist pushing forward too much with your left knee and really squeeze your right glutes and right hamstrings. Lift your chest, stretch your right arm back overhead, soft bend in your left elbow. With your next inhale, start to come up, back to kneeling position. And then you can take this back down to the floor with your hands. And then again, number 4, downward facing dog. So keep that left ankle crossed over your right thigh and lift your knee. Now you're going to bend that right knee to press your shin towards your chest and push your arms straight overhead onto the floor so that you can press your chest towards your thigh. And then just a few moments here, stretching out your left hip. If you feel like your left leg is sliding, really squeeze that left foot up. And then you can let it go. Slide your left foot back down to the floor next to your right foot. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Right, come forward into plank pose. Chaturanga, exhale. Inhale, upward facing dog. And exhale, up and back. Downward facing dog. Again, this is a good place to take a few moments to rest if you need. I'm going to take my knees really far apart and my big toes together and just sit back for a moment. So I'm going to take a really wide camel pose here, and wide knee camel pose. I'm going to start with 2 blocks behind me. I'm going to put those 2 blocks on their second height, actually. So I have them on their lowest height right now, but second height works better for me. So once I flip that second height, then I'm going to lift my hips and press down into my hands. So my knees were not on my sticky mat, so my pants were sliding on the floor. So I'm going to come down and fix this. And you do the same thing if you feel like your knees are too far apart or too close together. You don't want them to slide. Taking the blocks up might get you a little deeper. And if you're like, oh, I can do that, but that feels really crunchy, then get the blocks out of the way and take your hands to your heels. And then press your hips just to your knees, the line of your knees, so you're not pressing them beyond your knees. Lift your chest, open your heart. Hopefully this feels a lot more spacious for most of us in camel pose. It did for me anyway. And just as long as you want to be there, and then lift yourself up and take your hands back to the floor, out in front of you. A little wide leg child's pose here. And again, stay as long as you like here. And this is a good place to pause and go back and review some things and try them again, or moving on. Downward facing dog. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And again, you can catch your breath here. Child's pose. If you still want to stay there, stay there. All right, step or hop back up to the top of your mat and forward fold once you get there, Uttanasana. And then on your inhale, sweep up, come to stand. You can take a big reach up if you want, or just kind of come up to stand here. All right, so first we're going to take a little leg baby. So use your right and left hands to hook your right shin. You can stay here, or you can then bend your left knee and cross your right shin over the top of your left thigh. You could stay here, or you can take your right shin behind your left knee and squat down. Be careful not to squat on the outer ankle bone. It's going to hurt your calf muscles. This is actually really great for separating the back calf muscles and breaking up the fascia and the back chain of your body. We're just giving the back a break here. Just a nice little stretch from all the back bending. If you can have your heel on the floor, fine. It's probably not going to be on the floor, so if you need something underneath it, maybe put a blanket or something underneath your left heel. And only stay here as long as it's comfortable. If this starts to become too intense, then you can come out of it. Sweep your right leg up to the ceiling and open up into a little bit of a standing split. And then step back deep with your right foot. Inhale, come up to warrior 2. Reach your arms up to the ceiling and straighten your left leg out. Give yourself a nice big stretch here. Grab your left thumb with your right hand and pull it back as you bend your left knee. And then open your arms, warrior 2, Virabhadrasana B. Really feel your strong legs here, your strong glutes, the strong hamstrings. There's an opening of the thighs, strong muscles in your back to keep your chest open. And then reverse your warrior. Inhale, flip your left palm up and back. Exhale, take your hands to the floor and sweep your left leg up to the ceiling in three-leg dog. You can open the hip here, wild thing. Get your blocks out of the way. Left toes to the floor behind you. You're on the outside edge of your right foot. Push into your right hand. And open here. Exhale, squeeze back through to center. Pull your left knee through and across to the right now, and you're on your left hand. You've switched hands. Sole of your right foot is flat, and you're in a nice little wild thing, or a fallen triangle. And then bend your knee into this fallen triangle. Nice inner thigh stretch. Re-straighten your leg. Come back out into three-leg dog. So unwind that left leg, thread it out. And then you're going to take this into an arm balance if you want. Left knee on the back, or the inner left thigh on the back of your left arm. Press your legs straight, look forward. And then instead of shooting back to chaturanga, you're going to take your right toes down and then up and back again with your left foot, three-leg dog. All right, and then you can lower down here, step back up with your left foot, take a little bit of a lunge on fingertips, maybe knee down, maybe knee up, and then exhale, step forward and fold. Inhale, reach all the way up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Samastitihi, standing pose. Shake that out. Take a minute. If you need to go back and review that and redo it, please do. If you've watched it the first time through and now you're going to go back and practice, pause the video here and catch up when you're ready. And then we'll do that second side. So you're going to get your left foot up into this little leg baby shape. And you can stay here. Or you can start to bend your right knee and place the outer left shin on the top of your right thigh for that number 4 squat. And you can stay here. Or you can start to then take your left shin behind your right knee and squat down on your right toes. Again, try to make sure you don't have that outer ankle bone digging in. That is not going to feel good. If you have your leg too far over, it's also going to pull your left hip back too much. So you got to find that sweet spot where your left hip is staying in line with your right hip. Left knee is right by your left triceps or left armpit area. And then again, squatting on your right toes. If you need something under your heel, you can put something under your heel. Stay here as long as it's comfortable for you. Again, you're going to get out of it as soon as you feel any really intense movement, like breaking up of that fascia. If it's too intense, get out of it. And when you are ready, lift the left leg up and back and free it into a nice big open split. It's like an opening in the split. It doesn't need to be a pretty split. And then step back deep with your left heel. And then inhale into warrior 2. But then right away, stretch your arms up and straighten your right leg out. Grab your your right thumb with your left hand and pull your right thumb back as you bend your right knee. And then open up into warrior 2. So it's like pulling your thumb back made your knee bend, like they were attached somehow. Virabhadrasana B, stay nice and strong in your legs. Open your chest. Breathe here. So this is a good place to catch your breath. Inhale, reverse warrior. Stretch your right hand up and back. And then as you exhale, take your hands down to the floor and take your right leg up. Spin around behind you with your right foot. Lift up into wild thing. Push into your left hand and your left foot. Open your chest, stretch your right arm overhead. Use those glutes. And then you're going to come over to the floor with your right hand, spin your knee under now and through fallen triangle. Left heel down, right knee's going to bend and push away with your right knee as you open behind you with your left arm. Big opening here. Good, and then come back to your left hand, lift that right leg up and open the hip again. Now here's that arm balance. I'm going to hop forward just so I can shorten that space up that I've got to move. Right leg out and on your arm, so the inside right thigh on your arm. Press back through your left foot if you're floating, and then again your left toes come back down and you come right back up into that three-leg dog. And again, work this out as you need. You can take anything that you stretch it out with. Right foot steps through though on the next breath. A little lunge here, and then step forward, exhale, Uttanasana. So both feet end up at the top of your mat in a forward fold. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana, reach up nice and tall. Exhale, Samastitihi, standing pose. Okay, so here you are again. If you need to go back and redo anything or revisit any of that those postures that went really fast. And next I'm going to set up for Pashasana. So I'm going to get a blanket for my heels. And coming into this noose prep, I'm also going to use a strap. I'm going to hook my left arm around my right knee and get my belt handy here. Sometimes this is challenging, so it's easier if you've got your belt around your feet first, and then you can reach around underneath your butt, and then you can kind of pull your hand around. Walk your hands toward each other, your left armpit, your left triceps hooking the outside of your right knee. And knees are bending forward and you're leaning forward more than you are back into your butt. So that's why something under your heels is helpful. Keep working the right shoulder open and the left shoulder down on the outside of your right knee. Even if it's just your armpit catching the top of your knee, or maybe your left arm comes to the inside of your left leg and catches the left leg in a bind instead. Okay, untwist and just hug in here. Pause for as long as you need before moving on to the second side because that's a really intense twist, so be careful with that. And then when you're ready, you can move on to the second side, Pashasana, noose pose. So again, I'm going to try to get my right shoulder down on the outside of my left knee as much as I can. Get that strap over to the other side. I'm going to get it around my right ankle, and then once I get that strap down there, I'm going to take my left hand around and under and then walk it around and then kind of open it up behind me. So I'm shortening the space on the belt by curling my hands together, and this is really a matter of opening that left shoulder so the right shoulder rolls down and the left shoulder rolls open. You can look back with your eyes, looking out of the corner of your eyes. You can look down towards the floor. You can look out to the side of the room. And make sure that you can still breathe here. Whatever expression you're taking, that you can breathe. It's really important. Especially in these twists, they can get really pinchy in the breath. Really, they can inhibit that breath a little bit too much. So soften what you need and modify as you need. Maybe you're binding on the inside of the right knee instead. Okay, untwist. And then a little forward fold here, Malasana garland pose. All right, coming down to seated then, we're going to move into some stretches. So I'm going to take 2 blankets, one under each knee. I'm going to fold the blanket up into a little, like it's a little bolster. And then put that blanket under each knee. You can use a block here. I'm just going to walk out to my elbows for a few moments. We'll be here for a few moments. I like to actually lift my heels up off the floor and then lift my butt up off the floor because I've got that blanket underneath, and then kind of shoot my tailbone back and shoot my sit bones back, and then I can feel my hips land back down, and then after a moment the heels can come back down. Also, you can play with any toe variation, so if you want to point your toes or flex your ankles, do what feels good to you. And then after even a few more moments here, just let your feet flop around. So if you want to lay down on the floor, you can pillow your forehead with a couple blocks or your forearms. After you're here for a few moments, you'll notice that your body can relax. And you'll notice that if you're too engaged in the front of your hips, this isn't really going to help at all. So now let your feet relax. This isn't alignment yoga. This is just relax and stretch for a few moments after that fast-paced flow. And really check into your breath here. Maybe you're closing your eyes. Maybe you're letting your breath relax your hips and your shoulders. And then notice how once you let that breath relax your hips and shoulders, it relaxes your thoughts, your face, your jaw. And you might start to notice some deeper areas here in the posture, how it's affecting your body. And instead of seeing this as a shape, feel it, experience it in your body. And instead of calling it a shape, and instead of saying the body parts that you feel, just feel the body parts and notice the sensation without labeling and without categorizing anything. You're welcome to stay there a little bit longer. But when you're ready, you can push up to seated and take a moment in seated just to let your back relax. And then you can pull your legs in with your hands. I'm going to move those blankets out of the way. And then come into A little twist. So I'm going to take my legs and stagger my feet. So I want my right knee to come down in line. So my thigh is in line parallel to the top end of my mat. And then my left knee is in line with the left hip as well as the right heel. And then I'm going to come down to my left elbow and pillow my forehead and stretch my right arm forward. So this is one option. This can get really intense, so be careful. If you need something under your belly or your chest, get a blanket back into play here. And find the place where that elbow doesn't hurt your shoulder. So if your shoulder is overworking, this is going to suck. It's not going to feel good. And then another option here is to straighten both arms forward and let your left cheek come to the floor. And only add on to these different progressions as it feels safe for your body. So you might need to stay in each progression for about 2 to 3 breaths before moving on. And then the next progression would be bending your right elbow and taking your right forearm to the floor, which I'll do here in a moment. And so now I'm going to bend my right elbow and place my right forearm on the floor, and now pillow my left cheek on that right forearm, and then I can really feel this in those back muscles. So now you're stretching out those back muscles you just worked really strongly, really fast too, a lot of movement. And so here just resting and noticing the stillness, but there's still movement of your breath. And notice when that breath, when you deep inhale, you feel the little extra stretch in the outer right hip or the back muscles. Relax your feet, relax your face, and then start to push back up to seated. And then I'm going to move into Gomukhasana cow face here. So I'm going to take that left leg over and around my right leg. And then I'm going to grab a block just because I feel like that's happy for me, and you don't have to use a block. You can even just stay seated upright here. You don't need to forward fold. But again, soften your shoulders, soften the back, and hopefully this is stretching your outer hips. Relax your feet. And then follow the pace of your breath, follow the path of your breath. Notice if your fingers are gripping or your shoulders are gripping. Let the breath start to relax those areas. Breathing right into your back here so you can really feel that press up into your back from your breath, from your belly. All right, and then start to push down into the floor to come up to seated. You can unwrap your legs, and then I'm going to swoop around to the other side. So now my left thigh is in line with my left hip, the thigh parallel to the top end of my mat, my shin parallel to the side of the mat, and then the right knee and the right hip line up, and your left heel and your right knee line up. And then come down to your elbows. So first, right forearm on the floor, pillow your forehead on the forearm. Left arm can just be relaxed there and helping. And again, stay in these progressions for a few moments before adding on, just to make sure, because you never know what you're going to be gripping here. So notice if your left foot, your right foot is gripping. Relax your feet. Relax your hips. Try not to push into the floor with your hips. And then the other add-on here, the next add-on is to straighten your arms out and let your right cheek come to the floor or your forehead to the floor. You could always have a blanket there under your head. And take a few moments here to let your back lengthen and relax with the breath. And then again, I'm going to add in the left elbow. So when you take the left forearm to the floor, if the left elbow is under your shoulder too much, it's going to be massive work for your left shoulder. And so if you can move your left elbow farther forward, it'll help lengthen your spine more and pull across that upper back in the twist. And if that's too intense, then you have the option to put a block or a blanket under your left rib section, chest area. And again, try to relax your feet and your hips, not pushing into the floor. And then just a few more moments here. And you're going to start to, especially if you're feeling tingly in your fingers, you don't need to stay there any longer. So in these twists, especially with the arm placement, if you were getting tingles in your fingers, it's time to come out of it. Or like if your fingers are getting really cold, not good. And so when you are ready, walk your right hand back to the floor and then push up with your left hand next. Okay, so then I'm going to move into Gomukhasana again. And I did the same side. So after a moment here, I realized, so make sure that your right leg now is on top, not your left leg like mine is. If it feels too easy and if it feels like you're overstretching, it probably was the same side again. And it's not good. So again, I notice here in a second, I come up, yep, had to sit there a minute and go, wait. Sometimes you got to look at your feet and say, how did they look before? Oh boy. All right, so I'm switch my legs here. Your right leg is on top. Use your block under your forehead. If you're on the right side and have been there, just ignore me. Soften your feet here. Again, breathe up into your back. And that's why I like having something under my forehead so that I can really let my head relax down and let the breath move up and not into shoulders that are bracing. So if your upper back is bracing, your shoulder girdle is bracing, you're probably going to be chest breathing instead of belly breathing. So the shoulders need to be relaxed here. And then when you are ready to come up out of this, you can use your hands on the floor to slowly push yourself up. And then we're just going to come onto the back, and so you can unwrap your legs and turn around and lie down on the floor on your mat, hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a squeeze. I'm just going to take a moment for my hips to relax. I'm actually going to take a twist. So you could take Apanasana, but I'm going to take my knees off to the right for a moment, and then my right ankle is going to come up on top of my left thigh. This is going to help stretch out that low back, the left side of your back after being in that forward fold. So you're using your right ankle to push your left knee towards the floor, and then your right knee is trying to come down towards the floor for a point of contact in order to push your left knee down. So your left knee is not going to probably touch the floor. In fact, maybe a block under your left knee would be a good idea. You can take your left arm above head to extend that line and then come back up, feet on the floor, and then let your knees drift off to the left after a few moments so that you can have your left ankle eventually come up on top of your right thigh. So it's kind of like what we did on the belly, but less intense, and also getting into the low back instead, so the quadratus lumborum. And so here you're trying to get the left thigh to come down towards the floor so that you can have something to use to lever your right knee down. And again, your right arm can come up above head to extend that line, that stretch from right knee up to right fingers. And then after a few moments there, you can start to lift back up and place your feet back on the floor. Take as long as you need, though, on both sides of these twists. So if one side needs a little longer, take it. You don't have to do identical timing on both sides. And then once you get yourself situated back to the floor, if you want a few little windshield wipers to work anything out. And then I like to take knees into chest, hug knees in Apanasana. Nice little tight squeeze. And we'll situate into Shavasana just for a few moments. Take as long as you need to relax the tension in your hips and your shoulders. So soften your face and jaw. Flatten out your shoulder blades on the floor. Scoot your heels away from you. Relax your fingers, relax your toes. Maybe you need to even like move your jaw around, open your mouth, and stretch it out. And then just focus on your breath here. Let your breath move in and out of your nose. And from your belly, try to notice how you're breathing. And here, your number one attention, your attention is focused solely on not pulling your breath in. Letting it just trickle in and out. So you're not pulling your breath in from your nose and you're not pushing your breath out from your chest or your belly. In fact, you're trying to slow the in-breath down with the belly expanding and slow the out-breath down with your belly contracting. So it's almost just like your breath is floating in without anything making it. It's just floating in. It's just finding its way there. And the same thing on the exhale. The breath just finds its way out. It knows where to go. Like smoke moving in and out. And if this is easy for you, you can then start to practice some breath counting. But if that starts to throw you off and cause pulling of the breath and some anxiety, just don't do it. If you're counting your breath, count your inhale. If you're not pulling your breath, you should be able to get at least a 3 or a 4 count breath. And then on your exhale, 6 to 8 counts, because hopefully you're not pushing your breath out. It's just floating out, using the belly to slow it down. And then just a few rounds of that. And so as soon as you feel like you've gotten the hang of that and you're like, okay, I see what I'm doing, let it go. And then just let your natural breath move in and out of your nose. So it's very slow. It's very natural though. So it might be a little faster than that previous controlled breath. Let it just move in and out at its own pace without pulling or pushing. And then take as long as you'd like for the rest of your practice here in Shavasana with your natural breath. When you are finished with your practice, take a moment and bow to you with gratitude and love. Thanks, yogis.